Good evening. Welcome to Tuesday at Two Lines. Hopefully everyone's having a great night. It's been a busy week so far. Yesterday was President's Day, so you guys know I'm a banker, so I had the day off. But it gave me some time to prepare. Spent some time on the track running the new DS controller, doing some more testing, so I'll have another update coming after this past weekend's video. Lots of questions from guys, so thanks for all the questions. I really appreciate the comments. I'll have some more info. So one thing I will not do, I'm not going to run through and say hello to everybody tonight. We're going to get to it, okay? Hopefully you guys don't mind. But there are quite a few people already in the chat, and I imagine you guys have been there for a little bit of time. I appreciate you all for being here. But I'm pumped. I've got a special guest. We talked to him a couple weeks ago, and I reached out and said, hey, would you well, actually, it goes back even further than that. I'd commented on one of Ian's videos, and he responded with, like, this is the type of content we want to put out. It was a great tuning video. And I was like, yes, we need more content like this. I said, I would love for you to come on the live stream, and we were fortunate enough that we were able to make that happen. So I'm just going to, without further ado, I'm going to bring Ian on. And unmute you. There we go. Hey, Ian.
Hello.
Ian Douglas. Ian, I was going to build this big bio on you. It's like the 2-time slotted national champion. I was going to really build you up, but these guys, they already know who you are, man. And you've been in the chat a few times over the last couple
of course.
Weeks, and we appreciate that. We always appreciate your input. But so these guys know you. I'm not gonna embarrass you with like all the races you've won over the last couple of years, but you have built quite a big resume over the last few years, and we'll get into that. So
sure.
So what's going on in your life right now?
Oh man, just getting ready for Scale Auto at Electric Dreams coming up in about a month, and then when I'm not doing that, I'm just working and dealing with my thank you, Corey. I'm also dealing with some house problems this week, so
that stinks.
I think Marty put that on the screen for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Corey.
Jerks. Oh my God.
So yeah, you mentioned you had some house projects, man. Like, dude, those stink. Sometimes there are good house projects, but I think what you're dealing with are bad house projects right now.
Yeah, it's definitely not super fun. My girlfriend, bless her heart, she's away for work right now. And then the day before she left, we found out we have some mold underneath the house. So that's been fun, and standing water and stuff. So it's been an interesting week, but it's okay. As my mom says, I will persevere. That's her phrase.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a funny story. The first house my wife and I lived in, it was very small, but it had a crawl space, and we kept hearing a noise. Yep. And so I went outside and opened up the door, which was this little tiny, like, claustrophobic door that you had to get in the crawl space. And unbeknownst to me, I had trapped a cat down there. And when I opened that door, that cat shot out of there like it was shot out of a cannon, straight into my face. Clawed the crap out of me. By the time I could get him off of me, he was a mess. Who knows how long?
And
hey, there we go.
The cat made it all the way to California. Yeah.
Yeah. I never saw that cat again. I have no idea whose cat it was, but I felt bad. He was probably down there for days.
Yeah.
And I trapped him in because the wind had blown the door open, and I'm like, oh wow, I probably should shut that. And anyway, yeah. So I get the crawl space thing. That house had kind of a nasty crawl space. So. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, you please don't blame me for not crawling down there myself. It's like it's like another world down there. I don't want to go down there.
Yeah, man, I get it. I get it. So I'll drop Corey's comment so we can move on past that.
Thank you.
There you
it's
go.
Just
Take
eating me alive on the screen right there.
Look at this. Like Jim and Jim's response. Corey, no. So, I mean, we may, because you're on, we may have some new guys in the chat. So,
sweet.
I'll try to get some comments up there. But so you said you're prepping for the Scale Auto event. When is that? That's at Electric Dreams.
It is March Yes, sir. It is at Electric Dreams March 8th and 9th. And we're
Okay.
doing 132nd scale GT cars. And then this year we're also doing 124 scale auto cars. So it's kind of, no idea what's going to happen. And
Sure.
we're kind of all running around with our heads chopped off
And will
or
that
on
be?
fire, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, hair on fire.
Yeah.
I was tracking with you. So will the 132nd scale be on the
Saturday.
regular
Yes.
track, and then the 124
Yes.
will be on the new 8-lane?
That is correct. Yeah.
Awesome. So they will be set up to be able to stream both of those tracks. Okay.
I've
Right.
been
Fair enough.
told that they will be. Yes.
Oh, that's one of the questions I have coming up, and like we can go ahead and jump in, but the level of coverage for slot car races over the last just 2 years since I've been in the hobby have come leaps and bounds, and so a lot of that has to do with Electric Dreams has set the bar pretty high, and we have some other events that are trying to catch up, which is tough. It takes a lot of money and equipment to be able to cover a race like they do, but man, does it make for a great just a great event from the live stream side of things. What coverage is great.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, when I went down the first time, we thought it was crazy that they had like 3 cameras and there was not really any sound and there was obviously no live commentary. And then it's just like every race, Marco's just like, I'm going to beat my previous self. And it's insane. I mean, I think I would hope that no one will ever catch up because that's so much resources to put towards a slot car race. And not everyone can do that. So we're like super blessed in California to all be able to, even though it is like a 6.5 hour, 7-hour drive, it's like, you got to go, it's like the show, the event, the place to go.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was curious how long of a drive it was for you to get there.
Yeah, it's not close.
No. People don't really, even though you are in California, people have no idea how big that state really is. I was in San Diego. Unfortunately, I was in San Diego the week before the slot at Nationals for a wedding, and I tried everything I could to make the trip to LA, and on the map, it doesn't look like it was that far, but like the GPS was telling me it was close to 4 hours just because of traffic and everything else.
Oh yeah,
that you're trying to work around. So people, it's
crazy.
hard to wrap our mind around. So how did you get
I think
started?
It's probably.
Oh, good. Good.
I was just gonna say, I think it's probably like, I don't know for certain, but I would guess maybe 15 hours. Tip to tip, at least. It's massive state. Yeah,
it is. It really is. I've spent a lot of time in San Francisco. We were talking earlier, I love that city, and Oakland, and got to spend some time there. And we have some friends in Modesto, and the slot car scene around that area is pretty big. A lot of great home tracks, and you guys. I mean, it seems like Jim Rose is always reporting on some race weekend. That's pretty awesome.
Always. Well, yeah, Jim is at all of them, so
he doesn't miss an event.
He doesn't miss a single race. No.
That's great. So what got you started in all of this? When did you start slot cars? What was your journey to that? If you want to share that with us.
I'd love to. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for even having me on this. And I wanted to just say before we even get into anything that, like, I think that your content is, in terms of like, it fills this like huge gap that we all have, that we all sort of are looking at, where we don't have like a place where we can all kind of talk about racing and the joy of slot cars. And we get little pieces here and there. Like Marco's doing an incredible job. Jim's doing a fantastic job, but like, I really appreciate what you're doing in the slot car world. So I just wanted to put that out there. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you.
Yeah, I
absolutely.
Appreciate that.
As far as my introduction to slot cars, so when I was growing up, I was probably like 10 or something, and I would, occasionally get to go to Toys R Us, and it was all about like the Tyco anti-gravity racers and like the
Right.
Tyco Typhoon and the 440 Bandit, or not 440, but there was like the Bandit off-road truck. And so I was exposed to RC really early. And so I was always into RC as like a kid. And then my mom said that one of her clients just mentioned that there's this place, a model car racing track, 8 minutes away from our house, and that I should go. And I was like, I really don't want to. I'm not interested at all. So she kind of dragged me over there, and then from that point on, I was just hooked, and I was there every weekend. And I pulled some pictures out, but I didn't grab the really old pictures. But like, I think I had like my 12th birthday at the slot car track where, we would, you get pizza and you get the rental cars, little flexi
Yeah.
cars. And, I just lived there. So every Saturday, my parents would just drop me off and I would just hang out there all day. And there were some incredible people that, um, were helped me, and just like the people at that track. It was Hot Slots Raceway in Pleasant Hill. So Spencer Allen, the owner, George Russell, who worked there, who later owned Fast Tracks Raceway, like all these guys were just, it was like a fantastic environment. And that's how I got started. And then I raced up until like I was 20, and then I went to college, and then I said bye-bye for 20 years. And now we're here.
Yeah, it's funny. So many guys have a similar story. They got an HO track when they were kids. My brother and I, we got a TCR track. This is, I'm telling my age, but the Total Control Racing where it was slotless.
Yep,
you could do lane changer. Yeah, and what was funny was the lane changing all happened inside the car, and it was basically you were flipping polarity, and when you flip the polarity of the track, it would shift the front wheels. They really, it was really a fascinating set. And we wore that thing out, and it would come out at Christmas time, and we would rainy day when we were trapped in the house, in the summer or something, we would set the track up and we would run laps, and then we just couldn't find parts anymore for the cars, and we'd rebuilt them so many times, and I think it's interesting, like so many guys found the hobby, and like my sister, she even raced with us, so and when they come over for Thanksgiving, we all come down and race on the track, and it's like reliving our childhood, right?
Yeah.
But so many guys have that same story, but so many people didn't have commercial tracks near them. The home here in Chillicothe, at one point there were 3 slot car tracks in town, and I never raced on any of them. When I finally discovered the last remaining slot car track, it was like the week that he was shutting the hobby shop down, because I was in there trying to find RC parts for cars, because my brother Dusty and I, and my dad and my uncle, we were all racing RC buggies at the time. So yeah, and so a lot of people, they find their way back, right? You were gone for 20 years and then you find your way back.
Yep.
It's interesting. The pandemic brought a lot of people back that we know.
Tons, yeah.
So yeah. So once you came back, you were in with both feet in competitive racing. Did you always like the competitive racing side of it? I know a lot of people are just like home hobbyists, that they never leave their own home track and they just kind of race by themselves. But one of the joys that I've found in the hobby is discovering, going someplace and racing, testing your skills, meeting new people. So was that you immediately when you jumped back in?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I jumped back in, I mean, that's how I left. I was always going to races. I had the privilege of racing at a couple of national events when I was a kid. I ended up winning one of them. I went to the Worlds in '99 in Canada. I actually, like I said, I have a bunch of awesome photos.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if it'll be in focus.
Fantastic.
I
yeah.
am
Pretty good.
right there.
Nice.
So, I was always into racing. And then during the pandemic, as you mentioned, I kind of got like really deep into RC cars again. And then I was talking to my friend, Mike O'Donnell, who is good friends with Jim Rose. And Jim was like, Mike, you got to come race these 132 cars. And so Mike went to the home racing circuit with Jim. And then Mike was like, Ian, you got to come race these 132 cars. And so that's kind of how it started again. And
So you were racing
yeah, just kind of
124
went.
before.
I was racing 124
Okay.
before. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had never raced a 132 car before like 2021. And I went through the same journey that I'm sure a lot of people watching, a lot of people in 132 do, where, there's a lot of people who say, just true the tires, throw it on the track, it'll be great. And, I struggled and struggled and struggled. And I just really worked at like, what is going on with these cars? Why are they so bad? Like, a bad 132 car is like really bad.
Yeah.
And so naturally being somebody I'm just like super driven to get better at things. I was racing at the home circuit, and then as soon as Electric Dreams started opening racing, it was like, oh, that's where we have to go. And it just kind of, you're always just sort of chasing that next level. And that's, I guess, where I'm totally rambling, but that's kind of where my head's at. Is I'm just trying to see, where can I go? Like how far can I go?
Yeah. So, how many tracks do you have available to you to practice? Because I know you don't make the trip to Electric Dreams every week to practice, but you've settled in on that. You've settled in on that track. You're pretty good on it. So,
thank you.
But I mean, you've got Motown. You've got. I mean, I don't know how many tracks you have available to you.
So I would say like our NorCal 32 circuit is Motown, Mike Andrews' home track, which is like a little paper clip, which is super cool. Ted Essie has a track in his house. There's some guys up in Sacramento. Paul Hendricks has a beautiful home track. There's Fast Track Hobbies in Rockland. So I'd say there's probably like 6 tracks, but again, we're talking like it's 100 miles from one to the other, right?
Sure.
So there's definitely tracks. I think one of the things, I think you mentioned it in one of the questions you were going to ask, like what makes people in the Northern California scene like healthy. And I think it's that the tracks are all so different. Yeah. And I think that having a lot of different tracks really like you learn so much faster than just having like the one track,
Yeah, I agree. I think that difference, having to adjust your driving and not running laps on the exact same layout every time, different surfaces.
Totally.
Does everybody, there's a question from Josh Reed I'll get to in a minute. It's jumping into the tuning. He's talking about rubber tires, but is everybody running rubber tires in California? Is that the norm? Okay.
Basically. Yeah. I don't know where it started. If it was, I think Jim Rose would probably know, but I think it started at like Sidewinder Raceway up in Sacramento area, Rancho Cordova. And then, when Marco came and opened Electric Dreams, he did rubber, and we were all just like, oh yeah, rubber.
Yeah.
But it's not a conscious decision that we all kind of made. It's just sort of organically formed that way.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of guys that give us a hard time. We run silicone around here. And the reason why I run silicone on my track is because the club we go to runs silicone, right? And so you're testing and doing things here at the track. If I was using a different type of tire, it's wasted practice time and it's wasted tuning time. And so I think that there's this little pocket in the Midwest that a lot of tracks run silicone. But then, there's a lot of, like on my oval track that I built, I'm running urethanes because that's what the home racing world proxies use. And so we wanted to stay consistent with that. So, but Josh's question was, how do you tune, or how do you true rubber tires? What's the secret to rubber tires? And I wanted to answer that question for you because you put out a couple of great videos on truing and working with rubber tires. So, I think that will be, evergreen content for you. People will be referring back to that. And there's a lot of other people that have had, have put, truing videos out there about rubber tires. There's a lot of people who are really good at it. And so there's a lot of good information out there. But Ian,
Yeah.
when you win a few nationals races, buddy, like people listen to your tuning tips. So I think that those videos over time we're going to do really, really well as people continue to find them. So
Awesome.
Josh is one of the guys I race with, so I knew that question was going to come out. He put it in the comments. I should have put it up on the screen, but
well, would you mind actually if we talk a little bit about silicone versus rubber?
Yeah,
because
sure.
I do have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, good.
Because I know it's like a topic of contention, right? I think that the thing is that in a lot of ways, silicones are like the closest thing to what they're doing in Europe, I think, where they have slip-on tires and there's none of this gluing and truing. And I will tell you that, like, in the rubber tire world, is it fun to glue and true tires? I mean, maybe a pair,
Sure.
but 7-8 pairs, it's like, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So it's not something to where I think one is better or worse than the other. I think rubber's really cool because it acts a lot like a real car, and you have all these different different shore ratings and types of tires. But in a lot of ways, like, I think a lot of the guys here also yearn for something a little easier, because it's really, really hard to just have like a rubber tire program,
Yeah, well, and like you said, a program, like you've got to really understand what works best for the track you're going to and the surface. And I'm sure there's some basics when it comes to, I've not dealt with rubber tires very much. So that would all be new for me, mainly because everywhere we've run the Eastern Nationals, we were silicones. That was Quick Slicks tires, and a lot of the races around here are that. And I think it's because they think that it might like bring the competition
even the playing field.
Yeah. And I think if you're really good at tires, you've got it, and at rubber tires, you've got an advantage. But that is part of racing, right? So, if you get tired of getting beat, figure it out. Like you said, there are no secrets. There are only questions that weren't asked, right? Or I forget how you said that, but it's so true.
No,
it is so true. I mean, there are lots of people who want to share the knowledge of that. But yeah, your take on that is there is kind of a the rule at the Eastern Nationals for NSR this year, you couldn't glue your tires, so that they could slip them on. And that truing silicones is a nightmare. So it's probably good. It's probably good that they come really, really good, kind of out of the package, out of the mold. But yeah, you're right. There's always contention about that. Silicone, rubber, urethanes, which is better, and I think that they're all good. They're all great choices. It's
totally.
Just, what do you where are you running?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've never, like, that's kind of the funny thing is I've never actually driven a car on silicones. I've never driven on I've never raced on a plastic track. I may have, I don't even think I've run laps on the plastic track at Electric Dreams. So, like, there's a whole nother world out there that I haven't even experienced, and to your point, like, I don't think that there's one way that's right or wrong. I think it's just, one has advantages and the other has the equal and opposite advantages,
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's so many things we could argue about in the hobby, and that's so unproductive. I've always had a kind of a rule in the chat, like, we're not going to get stuck on magnets versus no magnets. We're not going to get stuck on tires, compounds, and like John Albright loves to tease me about it, and he's like, come out to California and we'll teach you how to run on rubber tires. And like the treatment and all of that goes into it. I mean, you guys are getting great grip out of that. So I could see why you would like running them, but I'm surprised that somebody hasn't made a business out of it, selling pre-race prepped tires. Maybe it is out there. I'm not in the loop. But I would think that you could probably do okay. Show up at a race.
Well, so that's
lots of tires.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with, like, Todd and Herman and a bunch of people about that, because, you know, as to your point earlier about like the people who want to share information, you know, people shared information with me when I was growing up. You know, I would just ask people like, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? And they would want to share, because it's really rewarding to share all the things that you've learned. And also, I think it's really nice when people ask you for advice, because it means that your advice is worth something to them, or valuable, I should say. Um, but oh man, I totally kind of lost my train of thought. But in terms of like the getting new people started in the hobby, that's a huge area where I think we really struggle. Is like, if somebody walked into a raceway or a club and they have a plastic track and they run silicones, you can literally take a car out of the box, put it on the track, and it's not terrible. But to take a car out of the box and then put it on the Electreme's Cunningham Raceway, it is undrivable.
Sure.
So that whole concept of like, how can we reduce the barrier to entry? We all, you know, like I said, we enjoy rubber tires because of what, you know, it allows us in terms of tuning and the sort of the feel of rubber tires on the track. But it's certainly an identifiable issue with slot cars, is like, we want to get people into it. We want people to have, you know, we don't want it to be easy to like win a huge race, but we want it to be easy for somebody to get hooked.
Sure.
And the rubber tire thing is like a massive roadblock to people getting in.
Yeah, I could see that. So I wanted to compliment you on something. So I've watched a lot of the live streams, and you usually qualify well, so you end up waiting most of the day until your races come up. And they'll go, you know, Mark will go out and go into the pits, the tent outside. And every time he does that, I see you out there helping somebody prep a car, like during practice days, and helping them get their cars better. And I think that, you know, like you said, you appreciate people asking you for your opinion and for help, and you like helping people. I think the rewarding part that I've seen in you is when that little bit of help really impacted their joy at the event.
Yes. Yes.
My buddy Greg, I always joke and call him my buddy, Greg Kessler. It's somebody we've met in preparation for the Nationals, and there's a wood track here. It's a couple hours from us, but that we go race on. And we met Greg, and Greg prepped. I'm going to give him a little shout out. He prepped like 12 cars for the Nationals race.
God.
And it's because he knew there would be guys that would show up and wouldn't have a car prepped ready. And so he put all of those to work. These guys walked in and he's like, hey, I got a car you can run. And like the joy I saw he had just in sharing his, you know, his knowledge and his cars with people, it really was great. And I see that in you too. Like when Braden did awesome in that race, I forget maybe the slot at Nationals had an awesome, like, you were just as excited about him and his finish, because I think you knew you had helped along the way in his journey, and now you were getting to see the fruition of that. And sometimes we don't always get to see the harvest of the seeds we plant, but you're planting great slot car seeds in people and in a strong slot car community out there in California. So we're just excited for you to maybe work your way east and run some plastic tracks and silicone tires with us over here. So
I would like to, but well, first of all, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. And I think I would like to think you are 100% on the money, that like seeing other people smile, like that's the worst, is when you're at the track and somebody's having a bad day and they just yank their car off and a controller off, and then they like leave, and you're just like, dude, this is supposed to be fun, man.
Right,
like let's all work together to make this more fun for everyone. And if it's more fun for that guy, then he's having a better time, then the vibe in the track is better, and then I'm having more fun. It's just like everybody wins, you know?
I agree. Yeah, that exactly. Everybody wins. you hate. I've seen that happen at our club. We race at Cincy Slots when somebody's having a bad night and they just like pull the car off and get angry, and
Yeah.
and then there's always a little bit of regret that comes with that, right? As soon as you do it, you're like, oh, dang it. And we've all had those moments where it wasn't as fun as you wanted it to be because you're really struggling with your car. But I think
Yeah.
if you can help people enjoy their experience, they're more than likely to come back and invest in the local hobby shop and spend some money.
Yep.
They're just, the enjoyment of the whole hobby is so key for that. And so I think we're seeing that everywhere. Yep. And I think one of the first things that happened to me when I jumped on and started talking about this, when I started the live streams, I had a lot of people say, hey man, like the commercial track scene back in the 60s and 70s was so competitive. Nobody shared knowledge, and they ran a bunch of people off. And I'm like, well, that's probably why there was, like 3,500 local commercial tracks in the United States, and now there are less than 300. It's because some of that happened. But I think maybe the hobbies recognize that and is really trying to go the other direction. And maybe, the 1/32 scale guys are key to making that happen. But I think that that there's just a lot of room for, that in the hobby. So yeah, good stuff. What else?
I totally agree with you. If I could just talk to that for a second, but yeah, I totally agree that like, I think helping others is a massive part of it. And I think that, I dare say this on a live stream, but I kind of feel like if I give you all the information that I know and you beat me, then you're better than me. You know what I mean? Like I have confidence that like if I can give somebody information, I'm still going to win. And I think it just still elevates, it's like better for everyone. Nobody enjoys, when one guy just comes down to LA and wins all the races, jerk. But at least I'm trying to like make everybody better,
Yeah. No, it's important, and I see it, and we've never met in person, but I've watched enough of what's going on, and just hear you talk, and I know that that's important to you. Share the knowledge. It's something that we talk about all the time on the live stream, is how important that is, and that's the whole reason why this live stream is still going after a year and a half. I don't know how many episodes we've done of this. I haven't missed very many Tuesdays in the last couple of years. But it's because it's become an important piece to the week for lots of people.
Yeah.
To have that outlet to be able to ask questions and get, not get shamed for their question. Like there's the only bad question is the one that's not asked. And we say that a lot. This one's probably going to be easy, but like right now, What is your favorite class of car that you're running? What's your favorite car to pick up and run some practice laps on if you're not prepping for a race? Like, you know what I mean? Like a big race.
Yeah. So I don't really get to the track very often. I only get there really on like race days.
Okay.
So when I'm there, I'm just running whatever we're running that day.
Sure.
But I would say that there's two aspects to it. One, I really like to run some of my cars that like this car won this race like 2 years ago and I haven't driven it, and I like pull it out and run some laps with it. That's always like a really nice feeling, just to sort of get that, oh yeah, this was a good car, like feeling inside. And then I would say that we've been running a lot of NSR classics, and I'm just super impressed with, I don't know if it's like the wheelbase or the width or the chassis design. Obviously, it's like it was all done by Giovanni Monteglio, if I said that right. And so clearly he knows what he's doing. And I would say that like the Moslers are really fun. That's probably, I'd say if I like if you were like, you got to pull a car out of your box and run it for a day, what would you pick? I'd pick the Mosler.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. It's just It's funny that the Mosler in real life wasn't awesome on the track, but as a slot car, it is incredible. It's like
It is, yeah.
the perfect dimensions. The track is right. The triangle from the guide to the rear axle is right. It's just, and it works on so many different tracks. Like
Yeah.
it's like to the point where like it gets banned from some classes here because if you allow it, everybody shows up with the Mosler and it becomes a Mosler thing. So then you just create a class for Mosler
sure.
only, right? And
Yeah.
I noticed that they do that for some of the slotted classes in other locations where they'll run and they'll be very specific that the Mosler is not included because that car is good. I mean, it's the one I have is easily my fastest car on my track. And so, yeah, I get it. So, but you said you like the classics too. Are you excited about the new Lola getting released?
Oh yeah, I am actually really excited about it. I do really like the classics. I don't, for some reason, I like really love open cockpit cars when you can look down and see the driver and all the detail. It's just like always kind of been a thing for me. So I have show off what this Kona.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Kona's on my keyboard now. Oh my God, come on. Just inching her way closer to the screen.
That's funny.
So I got this 908 here that I spent a lot of time on with like the driver and
that's not.
I don't know if it's focused or not.
Yeah, those are not decals. You painted the checkered flags, right?
It's 100% paint. 100% paint. There's no sticker on this car whatsoever. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite paint jobs that I've done. But like those cars are just so good. I don't know why they're so good. It's just like the size of the motor and the amount of torque and the wheel. It's just they're really fun.
They're fun.
And it's not always about what's fast. It's kind of like what has that really is like really fun to drive,
Yeah. No, I agree. I probably run my 908 the most when I pick up a car to run laps. I pick it up most of the time just because it's just a joy to drive. It handles well.
Yeah.
It's my track record holder on this new layout. And then the Corvette, the C8 NSR C8 Corvette.
Those are good too.
Held the record for maybe a day or two, and then the 908 came back and beat it. So I have high expectations for the Lola.
Yeah, I'm excited about the Lola too. It's so we saw it at at the NSR race at Electric Dreams, and it's like amazing how small and low it is. It's like there's I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like within 132 there's like different scales, and it's like not a 143rd car, but it is really small.
Yeah. Andrea, when we talked to him about it at the Eastern Nationals, he threw it on the track and did some laps, and of course it had rubber tires, prepped rubber tires on it, and he immediately ran the fastest lap with it for the event, and it was a showcase. He wasn't racing it, but, yeah. So, and I think you would not have any problems, obviously, jumping onto silicones. Andrea did it, and he hadn't really run silicones, and he won the Eastern Nationals, both classes. So, yeah, I think you would adapt pretty quick.
Thank you. So, yeah, he was amazing.
Oh yeah, he's really good, and it was a joy to talk to. Like, it's fun talking to people who are passionate about the hobby. He's not just passionate about NSR; he's passionate about the slot car hobby in general. Like, he wants to see it succeed, and of course, if it succeeds, then his company succeeds. But it came from a different place when we were talking to him. It was fun to talk to him, just to see his excitement. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. He was, you never really know what to expect from people who, fly across the country or across the world, sorry. And you just know them through their, through their accomplishments or just by their name. But I was, he was like a very special individual, and it like just lit up the room. and it didn't even need to be like slot cars. Like I'm pretty sure that any place he goes is he has like a profound positive effect on the people in the room. He's just like a super awesome character and like really, really genuine, which was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I agree. What do you feel like the hobby in general, or maybe even the race scene, is it growing in the United States, or do you think it's this YouTube is shedding light on what was already there, and we're not really seeing growth? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, anything that I say is pretty much anecdotal, right? I mean, I don't have
Sure.
the analytics
Yeah.
from the
Right.
tracks, but I would say that I would say that our turnouts have actually been growing,
Good.
which is usually a good sign of engagement. Um, and then I really just think that the pandemic, you know, for all the negative things that it did, you know, it also brought a lot of nostalgia back. And I think that a lot of people in the last couple of years have gotten back into their hobbies. And I see it both in RC cars when I go race RC cars and slot cars. So it's like there's new people kind of trickling in. And
Okay.
I would say that I would guess that it's growing, but the rate at which it's growing it's a very slow trickle.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're right. The pandemic had a big influence on people jumping back in. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's when I started the channel, kind of coming out of the pandemic. I was like, I need a new hobby, and then I wanted to mess around with this YouTube thing, but I really think that access, that YouTube has brought
Yeah.
access to things that maybe people didn't realize. Like I didn't realize that there were still like nationals races until Greg and Josh and those guys were like, "Hey, you need to go to Michigan with us next year and go to the nationals race." I'm like, "There's a nationals race? What?" I did like it was cool to find out that those things were still happening. I remember those races from an RC standpoint, the Roar Nationals.
Oh, yeah.
And, we've talked about like you got to meet Joel Johnson. He raced at the last slotted nationals race,
Yep.
and like how awesome! And I recognized him when he was at the driver's stand on video. I'm like, I think that's Joel Johnson. I was like texting my brother Dusty, that's Joel Johnson, right? Like I was really excited to see that he was into slot cars because that dude could drive an RC car like no one I've ever seen before in my life. Like he was so good, and he's a few years older than I am, but what a great ambassador he was for RC for years. It'd be cool to see him get as heavily involved in slot cars because I mean people recognize him, know him.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
mean I agree with everything that you said. As far as like the nationals go, like I think on the West Coast, Electric Dreams has really just like reignited everything. We got Far Out, but Far Out Club isn't doing like nationals or anything. And so I think that without Electric Dreams, like there wouldn't be any. I think that they're doing a lot more positive for those types of events than we maybe really give them credit for, because it's like everyone in the slot car world sees them and they're like, oh yeah, let's go, like slot cars are back.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Joel is incredible, and he's every bit as nice as you would expect him to be. I have like serious uncle vibes from him. And so it's like really weird because I feel like I've known him for so long, but I've known him for like 8 months or something like that.
Sure. That's great.
And it was really incredible having him there. And just to put him on the spot a little bit, I've been to a couple RC races with him, and he just checks out. He's just gone. Like it's totally just, I don't want to say not a challenge, but I can tell he's just on another planet.
Yeah.
But when he was at Slot It, I could see he had some leg shake going on. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, because I know that that's like the thrill that we all have the first time we go drive a race. We're just like, oh my God.
I totally had that
saw
going
him
on
do
the
that,
nationals.
and
I was a
Yep. I
mess
thought it was the coolest thing.
the first heat. I was a mess, and then I calmed down a little bit, but it still didn't help me much. But yeah, that and how great is that to see somebody who has, how many times has he stepped up to a a driver's stand, and went out and won a race, or he's done that
Yeah.
a million times in his lifetime, and yet he still walked up, plugged his controller in, and got the
Got nervous.
yeah, it got
Yep.
and but the things that, like, it's what keeps you coming back to racing, right? It's like that feeling
Totally.
of that adrenaline pump, that excitement that a little bit of competition brings out in people. Yeah, that's really cool to see. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, yeah, he's a hero of mine from way back, and he would probably hate to hear somebody say that, right? Because I think he's a very humble individual, and so like hearing those things probably
That's
is
okay.
maybe a bit
I'll
embarrassing.
share a very embarrassing thing at the risk that he probably will watch this at some point. But like, I'm always kind of, because when I was growing up, it was like Joel and Brian Kinwald. That was it. Like, if you were into RC, those were just
Yeah,
the
two big names, man.
RC like goats.
Yeah,
And Joel always had his magic line of parts, and you just open RC Car Action, there'd be all these ads for Joel and Brian, and that had a huge impact on me as a kid and as a racing hobbyist or enthusiast. um, and you kind of always wanted to be like that. That was kind of like the gold standard. And so I get in this weird spot where I'm like, Joel, will you sign my Trinity Switchblade 12 box or car? No, I don't. Never mind. I don't.
yeah,
I'm not
that's
going to
cool.
ask you. So I'm always just kind of like, do I ask Joel to sign something? No, it's
Yeah,
stupid.
it's
Don't do that.
too awkward, but
Yeah.
it would mean the world to you, because sometimes we elevate people and they're not deserving of it. But then when they always say sometimes it's not good to meet your heroes, but then you get a chance to meet people like that and they don't disappoint you, and it's like, oh, that's such a good feeling. So that's cool. Yeah, I'm sure he would sign
Absolutely.
anything you put in front of me, and it's cool that you have a friendship with him. That's awesome.
It's pretty wild. I don't know. I got to thank Jason, my friend Jason Portman, for that. So Jason is like Jason and Joel go way back, and Jason was like, we should have a Zoom call. And I'm like, what are you talking about, Jason? And he's like, yeah, you, me, and Joel. And it's like, okay. And then we did, and then we've been racing together. So it's
Yeah.
crazy. I don't have anything else to say about it other than it's just crazy.
Yeah, that was the one. The next question I had was like, what are some of the other hobbies or some of your other interests outside of slot cars? So RC cars, obviously, you still race those.
I do, yeah. I got back into RC, so I've been racing indoor carpet, and I race F1. And that's just like so much fun to just go out there and not have, nothing against slot cars, but there's something really free about, you decide the line, and when you hit that perfect line, it's like, it's just a great feeling. So
Sure.
it's been really fun. Other than that, I barely have time for those two things. So, I've been trying to go to the gym a bunch, but I've been failing at that. And we work on the house and spend time with my girlfriend and hang out with our cats. It's pretty chill.
Yeah. All right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Let's see. What is your favorite track you've run on from a slot car standpoint?
Like ever?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many different tracks you run, and you said you traveled around a little bit when you were younger. What are some of your favorite tracks?
Okay. Well, there's one that I know of that just got rebuilt and refinished. It's owned by Chance Overholt in Seattle, or not Seattle, but like Eastern Washington. And it was a Canadian white, I believe. And it used to belong to Kirk Livernash in Puyallup, Washington. And so there was like, I have a ton of old photos of me and Herman, like playing basketball outside of the track. And I have a lot of really good memories of going up there and of Kirk. And I think the tracks that I am the fondest of are really like based off of memories
Okay. Yeah.
of like what's gone on there. So that was one. I'd say Electric Dreams is like right up there, one of my top favorite tracks. It's like built for 132 cars. It's amazing. Um, I would say, I would also say that like I have a really fond memories of George Russell's old Fast Tracks Raceway in Rodeo, California, um, which is like I think it was an MTT style track. I don't know if any of your viewers know like what those are or whatever, but it was a really big road course, and we raced 124 scale cars on it. But yeah, like I said, it comes down to I think more the memories of like what is associated with that raceway and track, and not necessarily the track itself. You know.
Sure. Yeah. That's fair. I get that. I watch Facebook a lot in the slot car tracks that come up for sale, and it looks like a lot of those older wood 8-lane American modeler tracks. Some of those are starting to come back to life, and people are starting to renovate them and put them back together. And the problem with this, some of those layouts are so big, you have to have a giant space.
Oh my God! Yeah.
You're not putting that in your basement in your house. Like it's some of those are really, really big. Like there was a Monarch, an orange, the American orange track here in Chillicothe, and my uncle is friends with the guy that still owns it, that owned the hobby shop right when it closed. And so I know it's like within a couple of miles from my house in a garage, just in pieces. And it's like, man, if I had a space to put a club, I would love to open up another club and build a venue that could host those types of races, And it's like I think the beauty of some of these tracks coming back to life is pretty exciting to see. People are wanting to see these tracks being used, because so many of them turned into bonfires over the years. So many of them are in storage units with moisture damage and problems, and it's just a shame. It's a shame, but some really cool tracks.
Well, and then I think that kind of leads back to your original question. If like slot cars are coming back, we're just going to deal with this the whole time.
It's all good, man.
This is just, it's crazy thinking about like all the size of tracks back in the 60s and 70s, and even up until the 90s. And I just feel like maybe that's one of the other reasons why 132 is, growing. I can guarantee 132 is growing as an entity within itself.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that just in terms of like real estate, it makes so much more sense than like a huge 124 commercial track. Right. And I think that's one of the other things that is making it so difficult for slot car tracks is just the sheer size of the footprint and the real estate. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a track that came up for sale over the weekend, and it was a sort of a flat, what do they call it? Hill climb, but it wasn't really a hill climb. It was fairly flat. And its footprint was 50 feet long by like 22 feet wide. It takes a lot of space. I mean, that is massive. A big, massive track. I mean, that track, the new track at Electric Dreams is pretty big at 8-lane. I don't know what the
but I
is,
mean,
but
I think it's only like 110 feet or something like that, maybe 120.
Okay.
But yeah, it's crazy. And then you look at like Modelville and those older American Raceway tracks that are just, like the Purple Mile and stuff. And it's insane how big they are. Really quick fun factoid, by the way, Joel's dad actually worked for American Raceways and sold tracks. Yeah. So that's his connection with slot cars. Is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, he talked about that on his track call episode with Marco a little bit, which was really cool. So, Um, let me see some of the. So go through your pre-race. Do you have like a checklist that you go through when you're preparing to jump up on the stand? You always have the headphones in, and you made the Celine Dion joke about why is he listening to Celine Dion, but I have a feeling that you're going to tell me you listen to 80s music or something, or something.
I do,
calming.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I listen to 80s music or like classic rock, like Journey or Queen and stuff like that. Just I don't know. My pre-race ritual. So Todd has been on this banana kick, and Todd is brings 30 bananas to the track, and he talks about them being a natural beta blocker. So he's just feeding us bananas the whole weekend. So there's definitely got to be a banana before you get up there.
Okay. All right.
And then yeah, just put my headphones in, find a couple songs that I like, and just go up. There's no real checklist, if so to speak.
Yeah. Well, so what about for your cars though? I mean, is there something? I mean, I know once they go through tech that you don't get your hands on them, but those big races. But I mean, is there what? Maybe walk through a little bit about how you tune your cars. I know you're a very meticulous person, and that goes a long way when tuning a slot car. But what are some of your basics that would help people listening tackle the next tune?
So there's kind of two questions there. There's the race day prep, right?
Yeah,
and then there's sort of the general getting to race day prep. So I would say that in terms of starting from the your race shows up on your calendar, where do you go? Yeah. My first thing is the day that the rules come out, I'm ordering all the parts and all the cars, and I'm trying to get the biggest head start I can, not as an advantage, but the fact that it always takes as long as you have, no matter what. Yeah. It's I could spend 3 months getting ready on a scale auto car, and that's how it works. And it always comes down to the line, come down to the race itself. So I'm always just trying to start getting all the parts, getting everything ready early. And then I would say that another rule of thumb is everything always needs to be straight and flat and true, whether it's the chassis, the axles, even the body to a certain extent, because some bodies will feel wonky, tires. So there's all sorts of, time and energy that goes into what I would call blueprinting, but you're not really doing anything to these things. You're just kind of almost assembling the car as a dry run and figuring out where the issues are, what do I need to do, and you're sort of just gently ironing all those issues out. And then I would say one of the other big things, Todd, I got to give a shout out to Todd because this is his phrase, but he talks about concepts, not cars. And the idea there is that there's no such thing as a magic car. Magic doesn't exist. Right. Maybe it does a little bit, but it's about understanding what you want the car to do, and then making the car into that platform that you're trying to achieve. So we're always we have this idea in our head of what we want to do with the car, and it's always based on our understanding of how to tune the chassis, and we're able to kind of get all the cars feeling very much the same or very similar, regardless of what the car is. And they all kind of drive similarly because we apply all those methodologies to them. I'm totally rambling, but it's a pretty big question.
Yeah, well, no, I think those are all important things. I like you talk about the concept and applying it to different brands of cars. Do you find that does it work every time for each brand, or are brands different enough that you have to kind of throw out some concepts and reestablish them?
I would say that 9 times out of 10, the concepts that we're putting on the cars work perfectly.
Yeah.
There's obviously like little things here and there, like ballast and the weight distribution and all that kind of stuff, maybe tires. And I would say that some of the cars have like bigger challenges achieving those things, right? So we like the back of the pods to move laterally side to side. And so some of the cars and the chassis and the pods, they don't do that at all. And so sometimes it comes down to like finding the pod that goes with the chassis, or sometimes it's about just taking the mold lines off of the pod and the chassis to get a little bit more freedom. But yeah, I would say that most of the time the ideas, the concepts carry through regardless of the brand.
Yeah. You keep talking in plurals. So you and Todd and a group of you all kind of build your cars together, not maybe in the same room together, but you're sharing your ideas and your concepts.
Yeah. So, well, and I also like, I talked to Braden and, I work with Frankie Valles. And so we, as like kind of a Northern California group, we're sort of, when there's a big race, we're all working together.
Yeah.
But I would say that like a lot like you and your crew for the
Yeah.
Eastern Nationals. But I would say that like the biggest turning point for me was at Scale Auto 2023. I had a ballistic car, but you could not push it at all. And it would go into the corners super deep, super fast. And then I would like literally give the car to Herman, and Herman was like, this car's undrivable. And then Todd's cars were super good on the limit, but they were a little unforgiving. And so we ended up just talking and saying, hey, could we combine these two things? And we literally worked for like a year and a half to develop our understanding of what the cars are doing. And we just combined both aspects. So now we have cars that are able to be pushed and get a ton of grip, but then they're also really forgiving in corner entry. And they what I like to say is like they talk to you. So if you're going around a corner and you're pushing a little too hard, like instead of the car spontaneously just hitting the eject button, the car will talk to you. It'll kind of slide, it'll chatter a little bit, and you can at least then know, okay, I'm pushing too hard, but it doesn't have that like snap instant breakaway.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that when you get into the fine details of tuning, that's the hard thing to figure out, right? Is where is that line that like, what is the adjustment you need to do to get the car to do what you're asking it to do? And that just comes with just repetitive in testing, right? I mean, so how do you, so you have to take full advantage of the practice day at those events, right? To get your cars. Yeah. And I can see where working as a group, you could probably come to the resolution faster if it's, 3 or 4 of you working on it instead of just one. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, that's why we get there on Thursday and we're just basically working from, 11 a.m. or noon. And that's just what we're just there, but the other thing that I would say is also there's kind of a limit to where, you mentioned making the car do what you want. I think there is a lot of that, but then I also think that sometimes you have to do what the car wants and not what you want. Right. So there's kind of a balance of tuning the car, but then also using that information to understand the car and meeting in the middle and not trying to ram a car into doing what you think it should be doing.
Yeah. The first time I ever drove on a wood track, we went down to our friend Butch's track. He has a beautiful garage that he has it's just a fantastic layout. And my cars were not working on how I'd had them tuned, were not working on that track. They were just not very good. And it was just a fun day. We weren't taking things too serious.
Yeah.
But we did do some racing, and Butch threw one of his cars at me and said, "Here, try this car." And that's what I recognized immediately, is the car was so forgiving that he had, kind of had that car dialed in, that I could make the mistake going into the turn,
Yes.
and the car bailed me out because it knew how to handle that and not immediately just launch itself out of the slot, which it should have. Any of my other cars would have done that. And so it's interesting that, the difference between plastic track and wood track, you're just not going to be able to take a car and it's good on one and throw it on the other, and it works perfectly. But discovering that's kind of the fun in building cars
Sure.
and tuning, right? I think I have our buddy Daryl. He likes to race, but he loves to tune cars. I think there are people that that's where they find the enjoyment in the hobby, right? Is building fast cars.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what may be the most difficult car you've ever tuned? What's become like the most challenging car?
Oh my God. I would say so. There's two answers. I would say that people tease me about this all the time because I didn't do the third video on the MR slot car McLaren GT1. And I still need to do it. I'm still like, all right, I got to make this video. I got to break this car down. I literally have it right here. It was Todd kicked the crap out of me that race. And it was a really rough event. But that car was really, really hard because it's designed in a way that Ernie designed it in a way to do what he wanted it to do and not what we wanted it to do.
Sure.
So it took so much work to just get the car to like work the right way. And then each of the cars I just found out like through a crash course, like, okay, each of these cars is jigged differently. So they all require different size tires. I didn't know that. And then the gear, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but the gear is actually inside.
Yeah.
Again, I apologize if it's blurry, but
You're good.
the gear is inside. And so, we had side to side play here. And so we had to worry about that hitting. And that car was just, I love that car because it looks incredible, but it was really, really difficult. And then the next year I was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm just, whatever Todd runs, I'm going to do the same car because at least that way I know it's not going to be crap.
That's funny.
And then the other car we're currently dealing with is the Scale Auto hypercars. And they are really, really complicated. And we've been trying to get them off the ground at Motown. And like every month it's like, all right, we're pushing it back another month. Okay, guys. It's like, they're just so complicated.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. They're difficult.
Yeah. I only have one Scale Auto car. I would like to pick up a few different ones, but I've got the 963 Porsche and
Same.
Yeah, I'm all over the place on it. I think that I'm getting someplace, and then I throw it on the track, and it's like, yeah, that thing's still not great. It's a bullet.
Yeah.
Holy cow, it's so fast, but yeah, it's a challenge. That's a tough one. You need to share notes with our buddy Greg. his
on the hypercars.
Yeah, his cars run really, really good, and he's even running some brushless in them too, because he developed the Velocity slot car parts. He developed the adapter to run brushless in.
Got it. Yeah.
So not only has he got them tuned to run with the normal motor, but he's got them tuned to be really, really good with the. But they're prepping those cars for the 24-hour race in Michigan, so that's what they like.
I gotcha. Are you guys are allowing brushless to run the 24-hour race?
They did this past year. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And what they found is, I think they finished second, and what they found was there was no motor fall off over the 24 hours. They ran their fastest heat in the last heat. The car just kept getting better and better and better, and as other teams were falling off. But they had their own problems with other things.
Sure.
Motor was not the problem.
I gotcha.
I think they were fighting the speed control that was available at the time. It had kind of a lag to it.
Oh, wow.
At the
Okay.
finger feel, so that made the car a little tough to drive. I think it took some getting used to, but yeah, good stuff. Let's see, what else do we have? Ian, I see Todd was in the chat. He copyrighted.
Oh,
he copyright his concepts.
His concepts, not cars.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, concepts, not cars.
That.
Yeah, that's good stuff. George.
Did you want to talk about anything? Oh yeah, go ahead.
George mentions the scale auto cars are really made for plastic tracks, mainly in Europe, and which makes sense. And Todd seconds that, I guess. Greg, I know those cars very well, the hypercars. He does. He spent a lot of time with them. What else? What else did we talk about?
I don't know. We had all those questions.
Yeah, I had all those questions. We hit the Celine Dion, their checklist, other interests. So you do you have what's your best post-race meal? Do you have a go-to?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Todd's going to love this one. Okay, so we have this place at Electric Dreams called Hop Dottie, and that's our spot. That is our spot. Like when we go down there, we made a joke last time where, I was like, well, where do you guys want to go? And then Herman said, is there really another choice? Like we're going to Hop Dottie.
So it is the place. Yeah.
It is the place. Yeah. We just go down there and it's like that. I told Herman this the last time, but I mean, it's very common knowledge, but like the dinner after is like that's the race.
Okay.
Like you do it all for the dinner after the race. That is like the sort of catharsis, like all the time that you put into it, all the energy. It's just like, oh man, it's so good to be like kind of done with that. And we had a great time, and it's kind of the release after all the stress,
Yeah. We found that ours, for the Nationals race, our group the night before, so after practice, when practice was over and they closed the track down, we had a little bit of time, and so we went out to eat that night, and it actually happened to be Greg's birthday, and so we were celebrating his birthday. But I would agree, like it was one of the best meals I've had in a long time because of the company that I was keeping. Like we just lots of laughs around the table, and the slot car talk never stopped. I mean, we were still just so zoned in on the race and preparation, but it made for a very fun night. And I'm sure if we go back this year, the same thing will happen, is we'll have that dinner and be able to, wind down a little bit and enjoy the moment. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yep. I totally agree.
There's a question about controllers.
Yep.
You and I have had a great conversation last week about controllers, but like what are you using now, and like what do you expect from your controller? Yes, the Apex.
Yes. So that is what I'm using right now. And that's what I'm using right now, right? So that's what we know today. And today that is the controller that I feel gives me the best control over the car. And yeah, I was talking to you earlier about your DS review, because I think there's a big gap in slot car content where everything is great. Every product is fantastic. You should buy every product, but it's like some of them are a little better. Some of them are going to actually make you a little faster. Yeah. And as you showed in your review, like you went a tenth faster with that DS. And so there's, as my friend Jeff Sensky would say, there's a there. Yeah. So yeah, I think controllers are like a massively under leveraged part of a lot of people's race programs, because it's like literally the thing that you control the car with,
Right. Yeah. I think like I started off, my first controller I bought was the DeFalco, and
of course,
and which, is kind of the standard, I think, throughout the hobby, especially 132nd. I think they're super popular in HO as well. And I thought, like, yep, I found my controller. I'm super happy with this controller. I'm consistent with it. I can drive well. It's got, brake sensitivity and traction control. What else do I need? And then,
Exactly.
back in November, the DS came out, and people were talking about that brake circuit, about the dynamic brakes, and I was like, okay. So it sent me on a path of like exploring what else is out there, and like modifications. Like, so what are some of the 124 scale modifications people are making? And so I started looking into that. And Cleve Tech out of the UK has got some awesome string of videos where he's rebuilding a controller for somebody, and he's adding like anti-brake, and he's adding different things to the controller. And so when I knew I need an extra controller here for my track, I thought I would try the DS. And it could easily become my main controller with a little bit more time. When my initial test, I'm like, okay, I'm going to run in each lane. I'm going to run, a minute and a half with each controller. So I did, I've got 4 lanes, like a minute and a half heat in each one, and do a comparison. And I did more laps with my DeFalco, but the lap times in the DS were so much faster, like 1 to 2 tenths of a second in each lane faster. And so I'm like, okay, so if I can get more speed, how do I get the consistency that I get from my DeFalco? What is causing that? So that's what I'm exploring now.
Yeah, like with the more laps with the DeFalco, is that because the average lap time was less, or did you come off the track, or was
I was having issues in one turn with the DS that I just couldn't figure out where the settings needed to be, and I was deslotting, and that was what was killing my laps. And in my DeFalco, I think that I naturally just fixed it with my fingers, right? And like I put thousands of laps.
You knew what to do.
I knew what to do with the DeFalco. I didn't know what to do with the DS, and I was chasing those fast laps. When you start seeing your lap time, that it was pretty consistent for weeks, and then all of a sudden it starts dropping a tenth, and then 2 tenths, and then 3 tenths, and you're like, how is that happening? Like, and then you start searching for speed everywhere, and I think that's what I was doing with that controller. So if I did that test again today, it's a week later, I'm probably way more consistent with the DS now, a week later. So we'll see.
I would say that, truth be told, it took me, I don't know if it's been a year, but I feel like it's been a year with the True Speed, and I feel like I finally understand. Like it's you got to just pound laps and spend time trying things, and it took forever. So, though it's one of those things where it might not feel better right away, but if you can figure out how to leverage the tools, that there's something there, And Kona says, thank you.
We had to get that in there. George says my voice is putting the cat to sleep. Yeah. Thanks, George. So that, the Apex, the issue that I see with the Apex is it's sold out everywhere, and so is the DS. So if people are wanting to try it, it's a tough get right now. And I don't know what the plan is from True Speed, if they're just behind in production, or have they tailed production off, and do we have more coming? Do we not have more coming? It might become one of those things that are tough to get.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of, God, that's like the trope of 132 slot cars, or just slot cars in general, is like, there's this great product out. You can't buy it anywhere. It's just, I don't know how it's such a problem, but regularly we're looking for things and you just can't buy it. Like, at Scale Auto last year, I had a Spiker white kit, and I bought that maybe like 7-8 months before the race even happened, and I feel like it was like the last one on Earth. Like everybody was like, "Where did you get that Spiker white kit?" And I ordered it from Alan at 132. He had 2 of them. Like, well, I have been looking for 3 months, and I can't find them at all. And I feel like that's just this whole slot car world of like cottage industry, it's like they make just enough, but
Right.
they don't make enough to actually, it's kind of like we make just enough and then we'll take that and put it into the next run. But I think the same is probably true with controllers. Other
Yeah.
than Jim, right? Jim DeFalco, like there's always DeFalcos, which is
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. I think he's a busy guy. I think he's always building. Because there was a
That's
time when I was trying to decide that I was waiting for DeFalco's to come in stock, and he had about when I called Jim, he had about a 15 to 17 day waiting period. Like, yeah, I can get to it in about 15 to 17 days. And like, okay. And he's like, but I just shipped a bunch to Slot Car Corner and Cloverleaf and check their inventory in the next couple of days. And that's how I ended up getting it, because they'd put them on their website. But yeah,
Yep.
You're right. The companies are of a size where it's just kind of how they have to handle their inventory, and it's a shame. But
yeah.
but have we ever had more choice in 1/32 scale than we have in the last couple of years? I mean, the number of new models of cars and new molds last year was unbelievable. I mean, there were cars that I didn't get to just because I ran out of money. It's like I can't spend any more money on slot cars. I want that car really bad,
Truth.
but it's just
Truth.
I'm just gonna have to wait. So, Larry asked a question.
Yeah.
Do you use your front tires as part of your setup, or raise them where they're not touching the track? NSR advocates raising them off the track, but
okay.
what's your thought on that?
It's actually funny because I could have grabbed Andrea's car out of the garage, but I didn't think to even grab it. But so front tires, absolutely yes. They're critical to how I set the car up. In 2022 Christmas Enduro, we did not use the front tires. They were just off the ground. And I noticed Rick Jocham was like, here, take a look at my car. So I took a look at his car, and I immediately was like, he's using the front tires. And, Rick has been setting up HO freight cars forever. And I thought, I'm going to try that. And so I tried it, and I've never set a car up without the front tires on the track since that point. I find that setting the front ride height is really critical to creating the right balance of the car. So I basically, if I want a little bit, I usually just set them up flat. So the car is super linear. But I find that if the front end is up a little bit, the car tends to be a little looser. If I have the front end down, the car tends to have a little bit more grip, but then more breakaway, like a more sudden sort of tilt breakaway. But yeah, we totally use the front tires. We're at the point where like the different front tires feel different. So we tend to run like a harder front tire, like a slotted, or Todd loves the slotting plus ones, or the racer sideways ones. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're totally using the front tires on everything.
Yeah. So I have to just add something to that. What I think that the wheels off the front is plastic track.
So yes, that is correct. But I will throw this out there that Todd firmly believes that on the right plastic track, having the front tires on the track is also good. And I unfortunately told Corey to put his front tires on the track at the Eastern Nationals, and he was like, "This is terrible. I hate you. Why did you tell me to do this?" And so again, I don't have any plastic experience, but the concept of the front tires, if the track is smooth enough, is to have that front sort of stability, right? Yeah. And I think if you can run them, it's good to have them.
Yeah. It was so funny when we sat down, Daniel, a buddy of ours, Daniel, sat down with Andrea and said, help me with my car. What am I doing? And he broke down his tuning. He's like, oh, front wheels tires are for aesthetics. That's easy. He said,
Totally.
yeah, they could be square. For all
I watched that video. I watched
and
every second of that video.
and I thought it was fascinating. So what did everybody do after they watched that video? Is they grabbed an NSR. I grabbed my 908, and I did that tune to it. Took me like 10 minutes, and then I threw it on the track and broke my track record. And I was like, "Damn you, Andrea! You just ruined all this stuff I've been learning about tuning." But I think that I've tried it on other brands of cars. Doesn't work as well. I think that it's the NSR and the way they build the chassis and how those cars are built, and it likes it. But I really think it's a plastic thing. I think that even the NSR cars on a wood track need the tires, they need the fronts. So I think it's just, it's something to experiment with for sure.
I think so too. Sorry, I'm getting overrun by cats. And I did want to show you this. I wanted to throw this out there because you mentioned James. So I wanted to pull this out here. That is James in the background. Right. Where is he? Is he right there? Yeah, there you go. And that's me. That's me as a snotty-nosed teenager. And then that's Mr. Paul Goronsky there on the other side.
Very good.
So I got some good. I've met some pretty awesome people.
I'm sure you have. Like, I think you're in a prime location to get a chance to meet people. Just in California in general. I mean, Marco sent me a picture the other day that Michael Richards walked in the store.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
and that was pretty cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and like good for him that Michael Richards is a slot car guy. That's awesome. You find that out. But when you guys seem to have quite a few people have been racing for a really long time, and so like Herman and Jim Rose and some of the guys, those names have been around for a while. And I haven't been in the hobby that long, but it was some of the first names that I heard when I first started watching YouTube videos and checking out the racing scene and what kind of racing scene was out there. It's like these names you keep hearing, and they've been in and around the hobby for a long time.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I mean, even Herman's been racing slot cars since the 70s. And it's crazy the stories he tells me, because he didn't take a break. So, we'll be driving down to LA and he'll be like, Latvia in 2006 and this and that. It's like, dude, you've traveled the freaking world for slot cars. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is cool. So speaking of traveling the world, any chance that you guys are on a team to head over to Italy or Spain for one of the 24 races?
That may or may not be true. Yeah, we're definitely planning on it.
Okay, good.
Marco is putting together a team. I can't say that personally. I don't have any experience on any plastic track, so I expect that Andrea and all the people there are going to beat the crap out of us. So I'm just putting that out there.
That's all right.
But it's going to be a pretty good team. It's going to be me, Todd, Herman, Michael, Nemus, Marco, and then there's another guy from Slot Terrassa named Elliot who's going to be on the team. So
fantastic.
It's a good team. Yeah. It'll be really fun. I've never done anything other than Canada. So for a race.
Sure.
So it's going to be really interesting. I have no idea what to expect.
Well, I think that I think it's just great experience regardless of how you do, right? I think back to in the Eastern Nationals for me, that was my first race outside of the club. So it was a great learning experience. I met so many new people, and that was really the great part of the whole experience for me was getting to meet some of my subscribers, which was awesome. Really humbling, but it was awesome. But getting to meet other people that share that same passion with you, and so now you get to go over to Italy and meet a bunch of people who are super passionate about slot cars and talk your talk and walk the same walk, and that's exciting.
Totally,
so you'll enjoy that trip. Italy is that's a good place to be.
Yeah, I know. My girlfriend is like, I'm going, right? I'm going, right? Like I'm like, yes, you're going. Totally.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no way I could go without you. But so like your first that nationals was your first big race experience. Like how I know you had a full post nationals debrief, right, with all the
Yeah.
guys. But like what for you, how would you describe the experience of going to a big race like that after having been somebody who is more like club based? Like how would you describe what you got out of that race? And like how would you paint that picture to somebody who had never been to a big one?
Well, I think that, like, for me, the big thing was new layout. We were all on the same page, right? Nobody had really raced that layout. So there was zero
Yeah,
experience. So practice was at a premium. And, 8 lanes sounds like a lot, but when you've got almost 70 drivers wanting to get practice time in, that was the tough part of the experience. I didn't get enough practice
totally.
on the track, and going into that day, and then qualifying is the first time I'd ever even done a qualifying, for a race. We practiced it at Greg's because I think he knew, like, even at his track, there was really no pressure in the qualification, but just going through the motions of a qualification
Still pressure.
yeah, it was still like, you still got a little bit of feeling of like, everybody's watching me. I'm the only car on the track, and I've got to lay down at least one really good lap, right? And so like that was key for me. I found out that I could lay down a pretty fast lap. I just couldn't do it over 500 laps. I was inconsistent.
Sure.
But I was able to knock off a fast lap and get into, a really fast heat. And then that's when I got to watch a lot of fast guys. I learned so much in
Yeah,
those 8 races. And so I think for me was, learning that, I might feel like I'm a newbie and beginner when it comes to racing, but, I've got there's something there to work with. I didn't know if I had anything to work with. You know what I mean? On my own
sure.
home track, you can be the fast guy on your own home track, but when you take it someplace else, you really get to see, kind of what you're made of. And what I realize is, like, I just need more practice. I just need more practice, and I can go out there and run some fast laps, and I can build a halfway decent car. And so for me, that's what the experience taught me was, yeah, that I want to go back. Right? I didn't
Yeah.
leave going, yeah, that's just not for me. I enjoyed the camaraderie. I enjoyed meeting all the new guys,
Yep.
and looking forward to getting to race with them again. And, I may not have the same luck the next time, right? I may not find myself with a super fast car or lay down a really fast lap. But I don't think that it will change, just my desire to go be in that environment
Totally.
again. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my so I'll give a shout out to Mike OD, who's like um, the guy who taught me everything when I was a kid. I mean, he would drive me to races. We drove from, my parents would drive me over to his place or to get picked up, and then he would drive all over the Bay Area and just taught me everything. So um, I'm very grateful to know somebody like that. But he said something, which I think is really true, which is that like once you've gone to an away race, it's like the other races are just they're not the same.
Yeah.
Once you go to that away race, you're kind of chasing that feeling of excitement, and it's like a slot car vacation. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. That is a great way to describe it.
Yeah, it's really fun. So that's kind of my thought is like I'm curious. A lot of people like you who haven't gone to that many larger races, like how did they feel after that race? Because I think that's a really interesting time of your slot car racing journey where you're kind of evolving through like I'm a hobbyist, I'm a collector, and then I'm like, oh, I'm a racer, and then oh, actually, I really like these big races. This is cool, and then you get
Yeah.
just sucked down from one end to the other.
Yeah. That with your wallet.
Yeah, well, totally.
But it was, man, this is the prep for it. What I found was, what you said earlier about, you know, you find out about a race that you're going to participate in. It's 3 months away, and so you order all the cars and parts so that and it's
3
still
months
going
if you're lucky.
Yeah, right. And then you've got 3 months to get those. I found out that I struggled to do anything else but prep for the Nationals race once I made the decision that we were going to go. And I bought, I got the cars that I was going to take, and I started tuning them and working on them. Like, I really needed to be doing some scratch building for a home racing world proxy, and there were other things I needed to do for my channel. I couldn't do it. Like, I was so focused on wanting to, like, not embarrass myself at this race and go through, and I just wanted to be prepared. And I still walked in and felt unprepared. But
Totally.
once the racing started, I realized I was a little better prepared than maybe I thought I was in the end. Like, reflecting back, it's like, you know what?
And
we did a good job of preparing. The team that I kind of had around me did a nice job of helping all of us prepare. So that was the fun part too.
absolutely. And I would say that, like, that whole the race is like really three things, right? It's the leading up to the race, and then all of the stuff after the race. It's not just the race. It's like calling your guys and talking to them, like, what did you do? How did you approach this? What screw are you using? It's like that is just as exciting sometimes as the race itself. And oh man, I totally lost my train of thought again. It'll come back to me. But yeah, that. Oh wait, I'm almost getting it. Oh, I remember now. Okay, so I will tell you that as somebody who has won a lot of races at Electric Dreams, and those are all, obviously big races. I still show up on Thursday and I feel totally unprepared. I might have 3 cars, I might have a couple sets of tires, I might have some trophies of races that I've won already. I show up and I feel like I'm totally screwed. My cars aren't working, right? It doesn't really matter. Like,
Okay.
yeah. So, and Todd always jokes about that, because I text Todd like up to the race and I'm like, dude, I think I'm kind of screwed. Like, I think Rick's gonna win this one, or I think Dan's gonna win this one, or Mike, or Todd. And Todd's always like, you always do this. You're always like, you come up with some excuse why you're not gonna win, and then you do great. And it's just, that's part of the journey. Like, we all go through that, whether you're racing for the 100th time or first time, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. My brother always tells me I'm sandbagging because I always say, oh my gosh, my cars are crap. And then we show up on Thursday night and I do halfway decent. So, yeah, I think there is something exciting about the racing though for me that I wasn't sure that I would be up for. Because when we started this journey with slot cars, it was just Carrera on the plastic Carrera track. Sure. And the first year, it wasn't even a thought. And then we're like, hey, let's check out this club. It's like 2 hours away, but let's drive over and just check it out one night and see what happens. And we ended up having to race that night. And like, it changed the whole hobby for us. It was like, all right, now I'm buying cars specifically for classes that we're running at the club. And now I'm paying a little better attention to my tuning that I'm doing on these cars. Now we're going to, hey, instead of just goof off running digital on the track this week, when you come over on Sunday, Dusty's my brother, we're gonna do some testing and tuning to prep for Thursday night's race at the club. And that's how it shifted for us. And I am so glad that it did, because it really has brought even more enjoyment out of the hobby.
Totally. I'm sorry.
Oh, dude, no. I have two.
This is the most active that they've been for a month. They're
That's
just
funny.
Like, oh, we're on camera. Let's do stuff.
I've got 2 dogs that make the live stream every so often, whether they're barking upstairs or Finn comes down to visit. So, well, Ian, is there any? I mean, we're an hour and a half into this thing. Is there anything that we've missed talking about? Like, what do you have going on your channel? What is your YouTube channel, so people can go out there and subscribe to you and follow, because you've got some great content?
It's CatFan14. No, I'm just kidding. My channel is at IDWorks, IDWURKS. Okay. And yeah, thank you. I love making the videos and I love kind of like teaching, and I've told Todd over the last couple of years, I'm like, I'm going to do a master class. I'm going to like put time in it, and it's going to be like how to true tires, how to mount your tires. Well, and it's just like, dude, there's so much work and life and house and relationship and personal health. It's just like, my dream is I would be able to just do that. And
Right.
contrary to, I'm the same way as everyone else. I'm like you, I'm like Todd, like I'm paying out of my own pocket and taking time off of work to do all this stuff. So it's, I wish that it could be, I wish I could give more time to it and more time to helping people, but it's like I end up just giving too much time and I just get totally stressed out and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But I do plan to make more content. I made a video about that tire truing stuff that was just like not edited, and I think I could probably just do that a lot more.
Yeah.
So I do plan on making more content.
Yeah. I think there's a trap with YouTube that for a while, if you were not investing a lot of time and energy and effort into your edit, that people weren't watching your video. And there's been this swing back to more
Totally.
of an organic, and I think that's a beautiful thing, because that's what brought me to YouTube originally, just to watch for all the DIY
Yeah.
stuff. And I liked the person that was like doing it on front of the camera, and then everything became so overproduced, and there's this swing back towards a kind of a happy medium of that. I think if you've got good audio
Totally.
and your video quality is good, people aren't so worried about the edit. So I just like your tire truing videos. There's such good quality information that it needs to be out there. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend. Yeah. The editing is great. I love watching those kind of videos, but I think you could probably save yourself some time and energy and just put out videos that maybe aren't as highly edited, but
Yeah.
it's all good information and people enjoy it. So
I appreciate that.
yeah, man.
Do you want to take any chat questions or anything?
Yeah, well,
Or
I've been
do we
kind
have
of
any other?
feeding the
Okay.
chat questions to you. Let me do a quick search just to make sure.
No worries. I know someone asked what controller I was using before the True Speed.
Yeah.
That was a while ago. And I was using a Third Eye Eclipse from
Okay.
Herman, which it was kind of super overkill, but now the True Speed is like triple the overkill.
Overkill. Yeah.
But that controller was really cool because I think a lot of people, the one of the things about the DeFalco is that it has no real choke. It has traction control, but it's not really the same. And so I think one of the things that a lot of people in Northern California are doing, and in Southern California, is we're starting to move to these controllers where you can calm the car down, because these cars don't like being upset going into the corner, coming out of the corner, and the
Right.
more you can reduce that, the more fun they are to drive, the faster they go.
Yeah. Somebody, Chris Frater, asked if you had a track at home.
I do
think
not. The closest track to me is an hour away.
Yeah.
I've
I think a
thought
lot of
about.
people. Have you thought about it? Putting something at
Oh,
your
yeah.
house? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Would
but
you
then
would you go wood track? Would you build a wood track?
I don't know. I mean, that's a thought that I think I literally had this conversation in my head. I think there's a soft spot for me for a really nice little wooden routed, like maybe 3 lane with like all the scenery, like all the scenery. Like I want a baby Laguna Seca with sand and like the little grass everywhere.
Oh yeah.
That just, oh my God, that would be so cool. But then I also think it's probably not super fair for me to host races or events on my track and race. So I was thinking, I probably would like just have friends over and host them and run races. So I'm thinking about all this. It's, but it's to your point, how you said when the races come up, you're like, that's all I do. I'm just thinking about it. And
Yeah.
I do worry, like if there was a slot car track in the garage, like, well, that's a lot of time that is going to be spent in the garage,
Sure.
not doing
Yeah.
anything other than
Yeah.
slot cars.
Um, uh, SCD Raceway says, "Will the national races ever go to wireless controllers?" I don't see that unless they get really good.
I mean, that would be super cool. Nobody has wireless controllers over here yet. I think the Solage controllers are
Yep,
one of the
that's
only
the only.
wireless.
Yeah, it's the only one at a wireless at that level of control, right? I mean, you've
Yeah,
got Carrera wireless, you've got some other wireless, but you don't have the Apex level controller that's wireless. Not here in the
yeah,
States. Yeah. Um,
yeah,
Josh Reed asks, have you considered coming to the East to race?
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I would love to, but again, it's just like the time and
Sure.
money and I think it's tough because I have I'm kind of like committed to the whole Electric Dreams racing circuit, if you
Sure.
will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've talked to Corey about coming out there. He tried to pull me out there for the 24-hour race. So I definitely would like to do that. I definitely would like to come out there. I just don't know when it would be.
Yeah. Well, you've got friends out here if you ever make it. So,
Thank you.
we'll take good
That would
care
be
of you.
awesome.
We'll take good care of you.
Yeah,
If you make it
I'm
out.
sure. It is.
No. Like I'm just thinking, like all of the tracks that we have access to. It's like, okay, we could probably make arrangements to hit a handful of those, just so you get a taste of what's the race scene here in Ohio and Michigan. And there's some great guys. Like that's what we've discovered is just racing with some of these guys in our area. It's just a lot of great guys that love the hobby. Larry asks again.
Totally.
You said on your channel you were going to break down your race winning Mosler. Is that still in the future? All right.
So the one that just raced in the 2024 NSR race, I don't have that car. That's Marco has that car. We're waiting for the breakdown. And that's just kind of how it happens. He takes the car and then it's like a couple months later, hey, there's a race winner video.
Yeah.
But I was going to do a race winner or like a breakdown video of Andrea's car as well,
Yeah.
which is very interesting. It's like a lot of different stuff on that car than what we do. And so that is a video that I'm definitely going to make. But as far as my my Mosler, that'll come at some point, hopefully soon. Maybe Marco's watching and he'll be like, okay, we're doing it next week.
Yeah. I realized I was supposed to send him the link to my live stream before we went live. I forgot to do that. Sorry, Marco. Um, so do you think that Andrea's car, I mean, it obviously is built to suit his driving style. His driving style seemed to be so different than all of us at the Eastern Nationals. So obviously he's building a car that it looks different on the inside because he's doing things to accommodate his driving style. Is that, do you think that's it, or just experimenting with new things?
I don't think they're new things to him. I think they're
Okay.
new things to us, right?
Okay.
Like he actually used tape to hold the motor in, but the tape allows the motor to rock but be dampened. And then my thought is that on hard acceleration, the motor is actually dipping and you're getting more downforce. So there's a lot of little things like that where, you know, the dude owns the company.
Yeah.
He knows every trick for those cars.
Sure.
And that's what I was interested in because I was they gave the car to me, which I'm super thankful for.
Oh, heck yeah.
But I see all his little setup tricks, and it's like, oh, okay, all right, this is cool. But
Yeah.
he also did a lot of things that we were doing at the race. So he kind of came. He started off like pretty slow, and we were kind of thinking, I don't know if he's going to be competitive. And then it was like all the way up until the last heat, he just kept getting faster. So
Yeah.
he just, he's a super. He's the closest thing to like a professional. I mean, he is. He's like one of the world's only professional slot car racers, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that's what you should expect from him. He is that good.
Yeah, I agree. We saw that too. He came in, rolled in, qualified the car within minutes after he walked in the room, and qualified in the top 8, and then took us all to school after that. Once he actually took the car and broke it down, he pulled all the ballast out of it because somebody else had prepped a car for him, and he pulled all the weight out of it, and he changed the front end, and then when he went out, it was like, oh, okay, there's one of the best drivers in the world, obviously, and he showed us that he was. But he admitted, like when we had conversations with him, he admitted that like wood tracks are not something that he races on very often, and so like that was the challenge. That was the challenge at Electric Dreams, at the Nationals race, was like it was a new layout and a surface that he's not really super comfortable on, which kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. I think we put him on a track that was exactly like his backyard at the Eastern.
Yeah,
Nationals.
Was it Ninko?
No, it was not Ninko, but it was Scale Auto. And
okay,
he kept complaining it was like a slippery track. It was slippery with the silicones.
Yeah,
he was still fast on it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. And as far as the fray, no, I have never been to the fray, but I appreciate your confidence in me, Jason. Yeah, there's like 80. Somebody said there's like 80 lanes. 6 tracks and 80 lanes. Is that what the?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's 10 tracks, 60 lanes. Jim said, yeah, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, it is crazy. How do you feel the future of 124 hard bodies such as Scale Auto? Will they add another dimension to the hobby of the sport?
So I will say that car is really interesting. I took it out of the box, took it apart, blueprinted it, put it back together again. The tires weren't even trued, and that thing was just a beast. Go away, Jim. And so I think those 124 cars, I think the cool thing about them is that the quality control on them is really good. And so you're going to get parts that don't require you to like scrape off extra stuff or sand or flatten. I mean, I had to flatten it a little bit, but that's cool to me, is that like you can take the car out of the box and it works. And I think anytime that happens, it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that might be the thing that really helps 124 racing. Those new Scale Autos look really, really cool. And like you said,
they are really cool.
The quality control in them it's good to hear that's how they're coming. Oh wow.
Yeah, they are massive. Like it's like driving an RC car on a slot car track. Like this is
wow.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's impressive.
It's crazy. Yeah. But, then you look at the bottom and it's giving away my setup right now.
That's right.
But super cool cars. I was very impressed. Like it was very fun. So I think it'll be very good for 124 scale.
Yep. So last question, and we'll wrap up, Ian.
Okay.
What do you see out of 132nd scale, well, even 124 scale, slot cars in general, over the next 3 to 5 years? Do we have a lot of advancement? Where is that advancement if we do? The growth. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a very interesting question. I think that let's do some hot takes. How about that? I haven't had a margarita, Todd, so don't worry. So these will be somewhat subdued hot takes. I think that there's going to be more plastic track in the United States. I think that with Scale Auto, and polycar, I think that's going to become more popular. And I think as the plastic track gets better, there's a lot of advantages to it. Like you were saying, you walk into the raceway on Thursday, nobody has seen the track. Here's the reveal, right?
Yeah, right.
The ultimate, right? Because that's what RC is like. And I think that that is impossible to really achieve. Todd and I have talked about it, about you could create a wood track that was modular, that you hot swapped different parts into and created different layouts. But, who's going to pay 50, 60, $70,000 for that kind of system?
Right.
So I think plastic track, I'm hoping it becomes bigger here. I'm also hoping, and Greg Gobb can send royalties to my PayPal, I would be totally down to try digital, because I think digital is really cool. I've never done it, so I think that it's a pretty neat idea. So I think that, like, in terms of 1/32, well, that's what happens when you have cats. Oh man. Well, it's the same thing that happened at the race anyway, so it's good. I think my hope is that we're on a positive trajectory. I think that the cars are getting better, right? We got the new Lola coming out, the new NSR C8, which is really good.
Yep.
We got tons of new slot-its coming out. Like Scale Auto's launching these 124 cars. Like I would go on to comfortably say that the market is bigger than it's been in a very long time. And I think that if we can figure out a way to combine some of if we can meld the hobbyist and the enthusiast and the racer and all these, and create something that, like, people all enjoy, I think slot cars could just maybe blow up again. Maybe not blow up, but, like, I think it's in a good spot.
Yeah.
Especially with Marco and everything that's going on. I think it's good.
Yeah.
Go away,
Yeah.
Todd.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on the east side of things, we've got, Slot Car Corner and Cloverleaf and Professor Motor, who are doing kind of their own thing, trying to create a synergy with some companies to help promote these national races that happen on this side of the map. So yeah, I think you're right. There's some good things coming over the next 3 to 5 years for the hobby and the race scene. Car choices, I think there'll be some improvements. Like as NSR releases the Lola, that's going to change every NSR car that gets released after, right? Because if it's as good as it appears that it's going to be, then the next new car that comes out, like you said, they're always trying to improve. And Scale Auto, kind of the same thing. So I think we've got a lot of exciting things coming to the hobby over the next 3 to 5 years, for sure.
I agree. And I think that, like, if people like you are making content, if I'm making content, if Jim's making content, like, the more content that we can make, I think the better it is for everyone, and the more knowledge we can get out. And I think one thing that I will say is that there's a lot of people in slot cars that talk about how much better it was back in the day, and how people weren't lazy and they wanted to learn. And there's a lot of nostalgia about slot cars.
Yeah.
And I can't deny that those things are true, but I would say that I know that my generation would love slot cars if there were one in every town. Like, I think the biggest issue with slot cars is its availability and the foot traffic needed to generate interest in it. And it has just sort of gone into the corner, and is very hidden. And I think that if it weren't as hidden, it would be really popular. Like, people want to feel things and do analog things. It's, I think it would be really good.
Yeah. George, real quick question. What do you think of scratch building brass and wire chassis? Have you ever messed around with any of those?
I have not scratch built brass and wire cars, but back in the day, we did run brass and wire cars for like GT12 and C1, which was like a strap 12 motor and Lexan bodies and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it, and I think that they are a beautiful piece of art. But I'm very much enjoying the plastic car life right now.
Yeah. All right. Ian, thanks, man. This has been fantastic. We went a little, I sorry I kept you about a half an hour longer than I was planning. I hope that's okay.
Of course.
This has been fantastic.
I'm here for it.
I just, go out and like and subscribe to Ian's channel. Check out some of his content. Help him out. But we're excited to watch the next live stream and you and Todd go at it out there, and Jim. I noticed that Rick hasn't jumped in the last couple Nationals races. He's been around, but he hasn't been in the field. Just wanted to help people and spend his energy there instead of racing.
I mean, I think that he's been dealing with a lot in his own life, and I also think that he probably is feeling a little burnt out.
Sure.
But he has assured me that he's said to me, I'll be at a couple races this year. So
Good.
I expect him to be at every event.
All right. Okay.
Basically. That's
well,
code for Rick's coming back.
Well, good. He's a fast guy. I mean, and obviously is a great tuner. And those, that first year of the slot at Nationals, and that was some exciting stuff. That final race was so tight. It really was entertaining. And I think that kind of got me watching that race live. Was like, okay, it'd be fun to be a part of something like that. Even if I'd even come close to that heat, just to be in the environment and enjoy the competition, that would be fun. And so that's kind of what started our path to go to the Nationals. Yeah, good stuff.
I think one of the things that made that race so cool was, and I know it got a lot of crap for this, but everybody in the A main was running the same car. And so there's only so much faster that, you can go with the exact same car as somebody else. And so, I mean, I've been kind of playing around with the idea, like, I think in some ways, every year these races should be a spec car. And it's like, you sign up, Marco's like, you can buy a white kit or you can buy a painted livery. Here are your choices. This year at Slot It, we're doing the Jaguar XJR 10. This year at NSR, we're doing this car, and everyone has the same car. I think that'd be really cool. But anyways, I'm just continuing our conversation. I'm sorry.
Well, maybe we need to do this again at some point. So maybe we'll wait till after your next race, and then we can break down the race. But I'd love to have you on
cool.
Again. Yeah, this was great.
I would love it. Yeah, and I'm totally happy to get into the psychological stuff and talk about race prep and what's going on through your head and stuff. I'm totally down to get into that.
Well, that was one of the questions we
cool.
never even got to. I told you we probably wouldn't get to all the questions.
You were right.
Was one of them.
You were right.
One of them was from a mental standpoint, because I think that for me that was as hard as the actual race was, getting my head in a right space for racing. So yeah, we'll leave that to the next conversation. So
the teaser part 2.
Part 2. Ian, thanks, man. Thanks for joining. And we'll wrap things up. Guys, as always, thanks for tuning in tonight, and go have some fun racing.